Dun, dun, ba-da-da-da-da-ba-da-ba-dun, dun, dun, dun. Dun, da-da-da-da-ba-da-ba-dun, dun. You took the high seat, stroked the little deer, wood in your hand, all velvet law and fear. Clock on the wall kept barking out the hour, like iron had a voice and thought it carried power. She came and chained, all rattle, breath, and shame. Number 4 identity, but still she spoke your name. You called it order, called it keep informed, but every word you dropped was weather dressed as storm. She came in from the wrong side. You noticed at first, not the cuffs, not the silence, just the angle of the chorus. You said no one speaks unless the bench allows. Yet half the room was laughing behind semi-obedient smirks, and I watched you hold the gavel like it answered to your pulse. Every sentence dressed in silk, while the threat sat underneath the velvet. You called it guilt before the speaking even started, then asked for honesty like mercy had a market. You wanted truth, but only if it bent, so I leaned back smiling at the shape of your intent. She said cure, you said motive, she said need, you said nerve. Funny how the bitter medicine always gets what punishment deserves. You let her touch because you had a reason, then rewrote the reason when it no longer fit the season. A belt became a weapon once the current reached your pride, and suddenly consent had clauses stitched inside. A judge at your left, brush laid by the font. Soft little ceremony while another life got drawn. One asked if teasing counted, one asked if pleasure lied. One nearly smiled too openly and had to swallow it inside. I watched your mouth go careful when the room began to turn, when weakness got too visible and dignity could burn. You said trance like it saved you, said pressure stole the key, as if wanting 1 second less resistance makes a saint of injury. There was a clock shouting cells, then food, then work, then free. Like freedom here arrives only when announced mechanically. And somewhere in that little iron sermon, a rogue machine still hummed. A cabinet tool, a hidden switch, a code somebody touched with numb hands. You said she enjoyed it, like that proved the blade. As if hands that know their craft too well are automatically depraved, but hearts that sign the method and hearts that name the test, and still you split the body into lawful parts and call the rest excess. Watch when the room got fragile, black feathered grin, half bored, chuckled as the cure was ugly. Maybe bitterness, not crime, was what you stored. If you wanted pain, you never needed all this art. You could cater for the theater and still pretend it served the state's heart. You asked for a point, as if there had to be one clean enough to file. Sometimes truth arrives wearing mockery and doesn't stay polite. Then came your final number, 1,000 dropped like lead, enough to kill parole twice over just to watch panic spread. You let it hang, that little pause before or, because power tastes sweetest right before it opens another door. Half the room leaned inward, even the gagged ones heard the shift when punishment became employment, wrapped up like a civic gift. State work, state smile, state hands, call it labor, never change. Dress the collar in usefulness, and everyone applauds restraint. I know your kind of mercy, it lands with sharpened grace. One hand writes salvation, while the other marks the place. And she said yes because survival still sounds holy when it kneels, while you renamed ownership as public-minded deals. You stroked the deer again, the clock kept counting sins, and somewhere under polished law everybody knew who won. Not truth, not innocence, not medicine, not right, just the woman with the gavel who could turn silence into fear. And I laughed low enough because we all knew we'd be here.